plate because it's actually kind of interesting. So, my girlfriend raises honeybees. So we have one hive of honeybees, and we had to go out and check the hive before I came and sent the homework out and started the class. And when we went out there, the honeybees were not happy because there are so many babies that there's not enough room for everyone. So they were freaking out, and there are 20,000 bees all freaking out. And the reality is I don't like bees. So I mostly just ran around in circles, absolutely petrified. But the bees are happy now, and I made it to class almost on time. So it feels like today is going to keep moving forward. But thank you for being so patient with me. And I'm excited to jump into this class. And I want to make sure, since this is our last session together, that I answer any and all questions that you have so that when you walk away from this class, you feel really prepared to go out there and start pitching art directors. So in our first session, we started to craft your pitch, so what you were going to send out to art directors. And in the second session, we started to craft kind of a list of people that you were going to approach. And then in the third session, we're going to talk about how to take those two things and put them together and turn that into projects. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the system and what I've learned through the process, and then I can answer any questions that you have along the way. So feel free to type in the chat room if you have it. Okay, so now you have your email pitch and a list of people to send it to. So what you're going to do is so it depends what you use, but I use Gmail for my email. And so what I do when I'm doing pitching is I will open like 10 new, like I'll hit compose a message 10 times and open 10 email windows. And then I'll copy and paste my pitch into the new email. And so then I have, oh, it's coming, Linda. Sorry, I sent an email. It's coming later. That's what I was late getting out. Okay, you'll get it right after this session. Awesome. Can I work on the worksheets and assignments next week since you said you would review and edit them? I haven't had time. Yes, that's totally fine. Whenever you send them to me, the pitches or anything you want me to review, I'll review it. It doesn't matter if it's next week or the week after. I can turn those around really fast. So just send it when you get it done. And wow, I am amazed that you even made this class, Denise. I can't believe it. And I'm keeping all of you in our thoughts because that's scary stuff. I lived in Alabama when I was little, and we had to go through one hurricane, and it was not nearly as bad as Irma. And so I'm keeping you all in my thoughts. Okay, yes, okay. So so then what you're going to have is 10 email windows open with your email in there. And then you're going to pull open your list of people to pitch, and you're going to copy and paste their email address into a separate window for each of them. And so each person gets their own individual email. And you're going to customize, so put their first name, like hi, whoever. If you're customizing it with their company name, put that in your pitch. And then choose what subject line to use. And we talked about this, I use working together, partnership, or quick question. So then put your subject line in, and then you can literally like send 10 out in like 30 minutes because you're doing them in batches, and it's all open and all your stuff is there, so you can move through it rather quickly. And so try to block off an hour next week just to send some pitches out and see how many you can get done. Oh, if you don't have a first name, some things that I've done, I just write like good morning or hi there, or sometimes I won't put a salutation at all. I'll just like start the email off, and that seems fine. People have still responded. So if you can't find a first name, that's totally fine. So yeah, any of those work. And then what you're going to see, how many responses you get. So some people are not going to respond at all, and that's normal. And some people might respond and say you're fit. Some people might respond and say, oh, this looks really interesting. I'm going to keep you on our roster of potential artists to work with. And none of those answers are going to be really encouraging to you, but I'm going to tell you what to do with those answers. So the people that say you're not a good fit, follow up and ask them, what was it that you saw in my portfolio that wouldn't be a fit, or why is it that you don't think I'm good, could be a fit? And then say, I know you're busy, so any quick feedback you could offer would be really appreciated. And most of the time, people will say something, and basically your only hope in asking that question is to get insight into why your work isn't a fit for this outlet and what can you learn from that. So if it's not a fit and they're not going to hire you, at least get some feedback on your work and why they're not hiring you. If they have not answered your email at all, you're going to wait a few days and you're going to follow up. So you're going to follow up and say, hey, I wanted to check in and make sure you saw this. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk through any questions you have, that kind of thing. And then the third group of people are going to be ones that say, hey, this looks great. I'll add you onto my roster of artists. And for those people, it means that they looked at your portfolio and they're like, wow, they look talented. It looks like they create artwork that would be great for our publication or for our product line, but I don't know what I would do with them right now. So I'm just going to kind of put them on the back burner. And that's fine. So what you should do is follow up and say, that sounds great. Thank you so much. And then ask, would you mind if I added you to my monthly mailing list? Most people will say, no, that's fine. So then you should all have a newsletter list. So through MailChimp or another platform where you're then adding any art directors that said that they were interested in your work, but there wasn't a opportunity right then, you're going to put on that newsletter list. And then once a month, send a newsletter out to that group of people and sharing any new artwork you've created, any new projects that you're working on, that kind of thing. And the goal of this email is simply to get in their inbox and remind them that you're there and get them looking at your work again. Because as an art director, you have new projects popping up every single day. And a lot of times it ends up being like whoever pops in your head gets the job. So, if it's an editorial assignment and they're like, oh, we need someone who can do this certain style, the first artist that art director thinks of, it's probably going to be who they go to first. And so the more that you're in their inbox, the more that they've seen your work, the more familiar they are with who you are, the more likely you are to get that opportunity when it comes up. So sending out monthly newsletters and following up with art directors is a great way just to stay in the loop with what they're doing. Okay, so does that all make sense so far? Okay, great. So then you have on your newsletter. So then once someone comes to you with a specific project idea, so every company is different. Every project that you work on is different. Every client is different. And so it's hard to know exactly what to expect or how the project's going to go. But there are just certain similarities that I've seen kind of happen again and again. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk through. So what you can do when someone emails you and they say, hey, I have a project that I'm really interested, I think we could be a fit together, is get really excited because woohoo, you have someone who's interested in your work. And then follow up and say, this sounds great. I would love to learn more about your project. Can we schedule a quick call? And what you're going to do in that call is gather information. So in your assignment today, I'm going to give you a worksheet with a list of questions that you can ask during potential project calls so that you can gather the details you need to really put a proposal together and kind of show them what you can do. So the questions that you're going to ask, some of them you're going to want to gather details about what the project is as an overview. So where is this artwork going to be published? What's it going along with? Why do they need an illustrator? What are they looking for in this artwork? What are the most important things that it has to have? What do they care most about? What is the timeline of this? Do they have an idea of the budget for this project? How soon do they need the first kind of round of mock-ups? That kind of thing. So you're basically you're not proposing anything right now. You're just gathering information about what it is that they want on the client side and trying to understand what the project, because the more you understand about what they're looking for and what the project is, one, the more successful you will be at executing that project, but two, the better you will be at putting a proposal together to then close a project with them. So Um, so when you're, and everyone always has questions about the budget. When you ask about the budget, most people are not going to give you a hard number. Some places have, like if you're doing editorial, they have a flat fee, like they pay this per illustration, that's what it is. Some places, if it's a licensing deal, they have, every one of their artists on every product gets like a 3% royalty in it. Um, I'll answer that in just a second. So there are sometimes kind of standard things that they have, and then some projects, they're not sure what it's going to cost. They have no idea, what's going to happen with it or how it's going to work, or how much money they have to spend on it exactly. And in those cases, you want to try and get a range of what they want to spend on it and how long it will take. Do most companies provide a creative brief to guide the project? Yes and no. So in an ideal situation, a company has a creative brief and it has all of the details that they need and all of the information that they need. But in a lot of scenarios, a company, a lot of times when newer artists get hired or when artists get hired, a company either hasn't had time to put together an entire brief, or they have a really high level one with a little bit of information, or they're like in a panic and they need an illustrator artist to create something quick and they just have a few details that they're going to send you. So it's a little bit different. And people who've never hired illustrators. So I've talked to a lot of people who have worked with smaller companies. So like one lady was a surface pattern designer who created a collection of prints for this lady who makes silk scarves. So like she wouldn't have put a creative brief together. She would have just been like, I make these scarves and I want some patterns to add to them. So a creative brief is really handy, but also just knowing kind of what their expectations from the project are, both on like a timeline and kind of money perspective, because it is really important for you to know like what they're looking the artwork and what they're looking for from the creatives, but also to understand like the person that you're making happy in this scenario is your client. So understanding what they want and what they expect and what's most important to them is going to ensure that you deliver something that they're really happy with. Okay, what happens when to the copyright typically with editorial? Um, I'll actually have to look because I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm going to look into that. I'm guessing that either you keep the copyright or they purchase the copyright within the flat fee, but just for like the editorial magazine. So like you could use it on products or something else if you wanted to. But I think it depends on each outlet. But let me look into that and get back to you. How do you keep from getting scammed? What is the possible negative of going this route? So the first thing is to always trust your gut. So if someone seems like you don't know if they're going to hire you, or they don't have any budget, but they might be able to find some budget, or they're unsure how much they're going to be able to pay you, all of those are kind of red flags of like, they might want you to work for free, or they might be trying to just take your artwork. But the reality is, if someone steals your artwork and puts it on something without your consent, then you can sue them. But the other thing is, so if someone steals your artwork and puts it on a product, probably they're not making any money with that product, like because they're just like they're stealing art and making something. They're not going to be very successful. And if they start making money from that product, then you can sue them and get all of the money that they made because you own the copyright of your artwork. And so it's kind of like they would be shooting themselves in the foot. If they knew the product was really successful and they stole your artwork, they would know that you could sue them and take all the money. So like that there is protection there from a legal standpoint. And if they steal your artwork and they're not making any money, like send them a cease and desist and most people will just stop and that's it. But people are unlikely just to kind of steal it and run and make a ton of money off of your work and you never see a dime of it, just because of how the laws and legal system is set up. But always trust your gut of like how how reputable is the client? Do you feel like, do you trust them? Do you feel like this is a good setup? That kind of thing. The other thing that I always do with new clients is I make them put a deposit down. Now, in because I do marketing consulting, it's a little bit different. And if no other artists are asking for an upfront kind of down payment, then they might kind of be uncomfortable with that or something. But I think a lot of artists do ask for that. So what I would do is ask for 50% down before you start on the artwork. So whatever your and this again, it's different if you're doing like licensing or publishing. If you're in publishing, they're going to pay you in advance. If you're in licensing, you can try and get an advance, but it's really rare. Um, but then you're going to have a licensing agreement that protects you from them stealing your artwork. If it's like editorial or product and they're kind of buying rights outright, or they're hiring you as a freelancer, then I would ask for 50% down. And that's just kind of like them giving you a little money as proof that yes, they are in fact going to pay you, and you can say that they're making that down payment to kind of hold their spot on your calendar. So then if you don't provide a creative brief, you need to ask the right questions and put a brief together for yourself for that project. Yes, exactly. It does happen that artwork is stolen. That's why federal copyright is something I do. Yes, artwork is stolen. Okay, I believe the artwork's, I am like, I can't speak really confidently on this because, uh, well, I speak confidently. I am not an expert on copyright. I'm definitely not an expert on art getting stolen and copyright and that kind of thing. But if your art gets stolen and you have copyrighted your images and you own the copyright, then from a legal standpoint, you kind of have all the power, but it's expensive to go to take someone to court. Like it costs at least a few $1,000s. So it's something that most people don't chase after unless the person's making a lot of money off of their artwork. Does that sound right, Linda? Yeah. And my friend is a patent copyright lawyer, and I've talked to him a lot about this kind of thing. And the hard part about any kind of legal agreement is that it's so expensive to go after someone that it has to be worth the money that you're going to make. And sometimes, you know, people, and even I remember when I had a lot of blogger friends, and people were taking their entire blog posts and publishing them there on their own site as their own words. And the bloggers got so angry because they were just like stealing their words. They were right to be angry, but you couldn't really go after them because you weren't making any money off of your blog and they weren't making any money off of their blog. And so it wasn't really worth it. And so most of the time they would send them a cease and desist letter. Like there are form ones. You can have a lawyer send one if you want. And most of them will get scared and take it down. So there are protections there. You do have to protect yourself, but there are times where you have to be like, they stole my art and they're a total jerk, and it's not even worth fighting with them to get it. And just kind of, you know, roll with that. And I also, I mean, this is a problem too in the marketing world where someone could steal your idea. And this actually happened recently where I talked to a lady and I was like, they were doing online courses and I was like, you're like, you need a platform. This is what you need to use. This is the software I would recommend, you know, and I can help you set it all up. And they hired someone else to set up the whole system on the software that I recommended. And I had to just be like, well, you're a jerk and we're no, never working together. So every profession, there's something where you just have to kind of like grit your teeth through it. But I think that artists are typically overprotective of their work and they don't want to give too much away in case someone steals it and then they end up not getting enough away for people to understand their style or their concept or whatever it is. So you kind of have to walk a line there. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Don't be afraid to put it out there. And then once you have an idea of what they want, what I would typically do, what I would recommend, and what I've seen other artists do, is to draw a really rough mock-up of what your concept is and kind of how you're imagining this going. Share it with them, get feedback. Add more to it, share it with them, get feedback, and keep building versus going out creating the perfect illustration and then sending it to them and them hating it or loving it or whatever. It's much better to kind of work with the client and show them through the process and keep them up to date. And as long as you're just professional, like, hey, here's the current, current process, that kind of thing, it's totally fine. And I worked with an artist recently. A friend hired her for a licensing deal, and they wanted a unicorn, and she didn't have any unicorns in her portfolio, but they really liked her style. So they asked her to mock one up, and it was just literally a pencil drawing on a piece of paper. There was no color, there was no anything, and she was able to kind of give them the concept enough that they were like, okay, great, let's do it. And then she built the illustration there. And that's what I mean when I say every client and every project is different, because it depends on who you're working with and how much experience they have working with artists, and how much they understand about what project they're doing. And so a lot of times artists can focus in too much on the artwork. So making sure all the colors are right and all the lines are perfect, and it's exactly how they want it to be, perfection wise. And a lot of artists are kind of type A, where they want every piece to be perfect. Um, but the reality is every piece could be perfect, but if you haven't communicated with the client in the right way, if you haven't, been really helpful and showed them that you understand what they're wanting and produce something that really aligns with their vision, then it doesn't matter how great your art is. Like, making the client happy is number one. And so when you're taking on these projects, make sure that you really understand why the client is hiring you, what they expect from you, what they want from you, and try to deliver that. And so that is kind of like, if you give them a really good experience of working with you, then they'll hire you again and again. But if you give them a great piece of artwork, but you are a total pain in the ass, like, you're never getting hired again. Does that make sense? So it's kind of that balance of, understanding the person and that project and what exactly is expected, versus just creating the perfect piece of artwork. Does anyone have any questions so far? Yes, exactly. And the more you go through it, the better you'll get, because you'll start to recognize patterns. So, like, in on the marketing side, there are always people who assume certain marketing channels don't work. So they assume, like, social media is just a waste of time, it never works. And you just know when you get on the phone with those people, I can start to tell just from their demeanor that, like, that's their perspective. And, like, I know from experience that if that's their perspective, I'm not going to sell them on the idea that they should do social media marketing, regardless of what I say. So I have to kind of let that go. Whereas in the past, I might have tried to convince them, but I've done it so many times that I know, like, they just want this quick. And another, I was watching, and so I have all these little flyways. I was watching a Netflix documentary about an artist, and he does editorial illustration, and he's done it for like 25 years. And he says 90% of my projects come from art directors calling me at the very last minute because they need a great illustration to go with the article in less than 24 hours, and they know that I'll deliver something they can use. And so that was really insightful for me, because, what it shows is those publications are trying to hire different artists or smaller artists or maybe more affordable artists, but they do that whole process and maybe it's not exactly what they need. But this guy has figured out how to understand his clients so well that he always delivers what they need, and they know he's going to deliver what they want. And he charges a much higher price, but it's fine because they know they're going to get what they want. And so if they, can email him 24 hours before and get a perfect piece of artwork for a higher than normal price, that's what they're going to do. And so building that reputation with your clients will pay off for you. And just being really timely, being really attentive to what their needs are. If they're struggling to sell something in to their boss or one of their colleagues, trying to understand why it's not getting sold in, and what you could do to help, it is really great. And so not just putting on your hat of being a great artist, but also putting on your hat being a business owner, and thinking about how everything kind of works together and how your art fits in the bigger ecosystem of what they're doing. That is going to give you an edge that no other artists or illustrators can compete with. And so really proving yourself and doing that work will pay off. See a couple people typing. So I actually left my water bottle right over there. So I'm going to grab it really quick. Type your question. I'll be right back. All right. The other thing I want to say is don't underestimate your local community. Um, your local community is likely to hire you because you're probably one of the few artists there, depending, unless you live in like Boston or Seattle, like then you're not. But if you're, if you're in a smaller community or in a local place, like use the fact that you're a local artist. And that can be a great way to get your foot in the door with different projects. So look at the different businesses that are around you and think about how they could hire you to do art or illustration. So you could do murals in coffee shops. You could do illustrations for the local newspaper. If there's a local magazine, you could do, illustrations for that. If there's a local boutique, could you develop products that you could sell there? If there's a local coffee shop, could you do a pop-up shop there? So look at all of the local businesses and see if there's a way for you to get some work there, because it can be a great way for you to bring a few clients in at first and go through that process of learning how to manage the project, how to, put things in action, and then expand from there. And a lot of the illustrators that I talk to, the majority of their income actually comes from these smaller kind of one-off projects where someone needed an illustrator versus the big companies hiring someone as a freelancer. And the reason is that these big companies have a lot of in-house designers, and they're not just hiring freelancers constantly. And there's a ton of competition because all of the other artists are kind of pitching these places. And so standing out can be hard, and it can take you a lot of time. But if you have some smaller clients and some bigger clients coming in, then you can get the credibility from working with the bigger clients, and you can have them in your portfolio, but you can also get the income and the cash from working with the smaller clients. Can you start out in one market and move to others eventually? Yeah, sure. So what two markets are you thinking of, Linda? I can use as an example. If you type the two markets, I'll give you an example of how I would recommend doing it. So then once you start bringing in more clients, what you can do is start to have a roster of clients that you've worked with in the past and figure out how often you want to follow up with them and talk to them about new work. But it's great to at least like once every month or once every couple of months check in with your past clients and say, hey, I wanted to check in and see how things are going. I've been working on a lot of new exciting projects, maybe link to a couple they could check out and say, let me know if you're working on any new projects that might be a fit. And so just reminding people that you're there and you're working and you're available for hire is a great way to just keep in their heads, and then you're likely to just get job referrals from those smaller opportunities. Yes, so most illustrators that I find are interested in working in multiple markets. And so they're like, well, I could do children's illustration, I could do editorial illustration, and I could do products, and they have all of these ideas. And what I recommend is one, getting really clear about how much money you need to earn each month and each year, and how many hours you're going to work, how much time you have, and getting really clear on the numbers. So if you need to make, $2,000 in the next 2 months, a licensing deal isn't going to get you there. You're not going to have enough time to develop a whole line of products and get wholesale clients and get those checks in the door. Like probably the only way to get money in that fast is more from like freelance work. So understanding how quickly you need to get money in and how much money you need to get in and how much time you have to invest is a great way to figure out where you should focus first. And so In the stationery paper goods world, you could develop your own product. The choices are you could develop your own products or you could license your art onto other products. Both options, it's going to take you a few months to kind of build up your product line or build those relationships and get a licensing deal. And so it may take a little bit longer to get money through the door. The editorial is all freelance. So, you get a project, you get paid sort of thing. So that might be better if you need money sooner. And then the children's books, you get in advance and then the royalties. So you have to decide which one you need to pursue first to reach your goal. Like, so and everyone lives in different situations and you're in different seasons of life. So if, you have a spouse that works full time and like this is extra money, your choices are totally different than if you're the sole breadwinner. And if you're retired and you have lots of time and, a little bit of money and, you don't need to be making money from this right away, that's a totally different situation than if you're like a single mom with 2 kids. And so under being realistic about what your needs are and how much money you need and how soon you need to get it in is a great way to figure out where to focus your energy. So what I suggest first is picking the one that's going to like help you reach your goals the fastest. Build that up until you've kind of reached your goal and like you're consistently making, whatever it is you need to earn, and then start expanding into other areas. Now, what gets tricky is that because in the stuff you create for paper goods will most likely not be able to be applied to editorial or children's books. So a lot of times people will do like they create their own products line and then down the road they're going to license those designs, or they create their own product line and they're taking on some freelance design projects and then down the road they're going to license that. And so figuring out how the different pieces work together is really important because you have very limited time. So if you are trying to run your paper goods business, find editorial clients, and put together a children's book proposal, you're going to be working like 14-hour days. And so you can't tackle them all at once. And so deciding how much time am I going to dedicate to this? What are my goals for, that energy? So if I'm going to spend 5 hours a week building my editorial illustration business, maybe it's that I have one client in the next 2 months. Like I hope I can get one editorial client in the next 2 months. So once you sit down and you're really realistic about what your needs are, how much money you need, how much time you have to work, what goals you set for those timelines, and whether or not they're realistic, all of those things will give you kind of the foundation to figure out where to focus your time. And if you're not clear on those things, then it's just like you feel like you have all of the choices, but you also feel this pressure to like meet your goals, but you haven't gotten clear on what they are. And so that's why you can't make the choices, and that's why you feel the pressure. So sitting down and getting really clear on what it is you want and what you want your life to look like and what you want to focus on is key. Part-time, and if it grows, that would be good. So I would recommend doing the paper goods and then eventually developing a children's book concept that you can pitch to publishers. Editorial is very fast-paced. They might be like, we need this tomorrow. Here's what we need. Can you get it to us? And people who work part-time, most of the time, you don't want to be on someone's crazy deadline. You work part-time because you want to enjoy your life. So I would say, yes, you can do it, but make sure that's what you want. And after one's working. Yes, Denise. And that's really smart because a lot of illustrators will take on like multiple things at once, like they're getting licensing deals and freelancing deals, and they're building their products. And what happens is your energy is just spread across all of those, and none of them are making a significant amount of money, and none of them are paying your bills, but you just are like feel like you have to keep running. And I've even seen this, like, so I run Modern Thrive and then I do freelance work sometimes. And if I'm spending more time on freelance work, I get more clients in and I have more freelance hours, but Modern Thrive sales start to go down. If I focus on Modern Thrive, the sales start to go up and I have less freelance work. And it's like, it's like wherever I'm putting my energy, that's where the money's coming from. And I think the same is going to be for you guys, is if you're putting your energy across all of these things, you're not going to have enough energy into any of them to actually generate income, and you're going to be working a lot. And so focusing on one thing, building that into a really profitable business, and then expanding your revenue lines from there is a really great way to approach it. So, what markets are under product development? I would include, um, and this is like subjective because everyone's everyone has different ideas about this, but I would say anything that is a product. So it could be clothes, it could be fabric, it could be notebooks, pillows, curtains, coffee mugs, art prints. Um, I'm trying to think of some great ones. Toys, necklaces, jewelry that you hand paint, Christmas tree ornaments, anything where you're taking your art and then turning it into a product that you can sell to someone. What are your thoughts on Surtex? Surtex is expensive. That's my thoughts. I was actually, so I wasn't an art, I had no art background before I started this business. I had never heard about Surtex, and I know I was not familiar with it at all. And so when I learned about, I was just shocked because in no other industry is this like the thing. So all industries have trade shows, and the people who attend the trade shows go there because like an art director who has to source artists for all of their products. They need to look at a bunch of artists at one time. And so Surtex used to be a great way for the art directors would go, they would see all the artists, they'd find the ones they want, and they'd move on. But now there are so many artists online that aren't at Surtex that the art directors know they're going to get some artists at Surtex, but they're probably going to find some others through social media and just through referrals and stuff. And they already have such a big list of artists that they don't need to be spending a lot of resources into building their list of artists. And so that's why the attendees have has declined because the number of people just going there and buying and building their list of artists has declined, and because they're looking at other sources. And then the cost for an artist to display work there is, I mean, it's thousands of dollars. And once you get done buying the booth and then buying the supplies to decorate your booth and all of that, it can be upwards of $5,000 to $7,000, which is really expensive and impossible for a new artist to do. So what I always recommend is you start out building your illustration business on your own. So cold pitching, getting in front of people, finding projects, and try to save a little bit of money from whatever revenues coming into your business away from marketing in the future. And then once you have a few $1,000s, like try to go to Surtex or Print Source or Blueprint. There's a few different ones, or the National Stationery Show, and see if you can get enough to attend or get a booth there. There are also like artist collectives where they split the fee across multiple artists and display them there. But just if you can get yourself into Surtex one way or another, so you already have your business, you have money coming in, and then if you can go there and then expand your list from there, then you're going to grow really fast. And so that would be my recommendation. The collectives. Let me do some research on that and I'll get back to you because I know like so Etsy had a group of artists that they had at I think it was like New York Now or something. And they had one booth with like all these different artists. Then there was another one, I can't remember the name of it, but there were like 10 artists who all kind of came together and split the cost. And then I think like Jennifer Nelson Artist, she's an art agent. I think that she like displays all of her artists together. And I know another artist who had an agent who represented like 6 artists, so she displayed them all in one booth and split it across. So I'll do a little research, but if you can be a collective festival, yeah, if you and even if like so they only sell tickets to buyers. But if there's any way you can just get your hands on a ticket and walk the show or, get a small booth or something, just being there and talking to people and seeing what's happening is going to give you a lot of insights and a lot of inspiration. And I feel like if you are already making money from your art and you spend that, $5,000 and you get a couple of deals, it's going to be fine. You'll be fine. But if you were just starting out and you put $5,000 into that show, you're going to feel so much pressure to turn it into a project and a deal that it's going to make it one, impossible, and two, just torture because you're going to just feel this pressure to like make your money back. Whereas if the money's kind of come from your art and you're reinvesting, there's less pressure to like turn it around as quickly. And so it gives, and when there's less pressure, I just feel like people create better work. When you feel like you're under a lot of pressure and you have to move really fast and you have to get through your stuff, it's hard to get really creative and create really, really amazing artwork. Yeah. So then once you start taking on projects, then you're going to have a list of companies, clients that you've worked with in the past that you can go back to and remind that you're there. You're going to have a list of art directors who said they liked your artwork, but were not ready to hire you yet, that you can go and share new artwork with. And then you're going to have a list of people that you've never pitched who you want to pitch your artwork to. And so you have 3 lists of potential clients that you can market yourself to. And so then once you get to that point, it's like every week you can decide kind of where to focus your energy, but it will be that half of your time is focused on creating art and creating new work and updating your portfolio and sharing your work on social media. And half of your time will be focused on drumming up new client work and pitching people you have pitched before, following up with art directors who showed interest in your work, and following up with past clients to see if they have any new projects coming out. And if you go through that process and you continue that system week after week, it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And what happens eventually is you hit a point where you're out of time. You're doing all your 50% artwork and your 50% new business pitching, and you can't take any more clients on because all of your time is taken. And that is a wonderful place to be, but it is also really uncomfortable for people as well, because then you just feel like you need to be moving to the next thing. And that is typically the point when people start building out new revenue streams. So licensing their work, developing, publishing books, that kind of thing, and figuring out if there are places within your business, things within your business that you can outsource. So I've even had like people help me sending out email pitches. I've had people who help me like just edit the work that I'm doing, that kind of thing. So think about within your process of developing what eventually you'll be able to outsource, who's going to be able to help you do that so that you can really focus your energy in the right places. So we have 10 more minutes. What you guys are going to get today is after the session, I'm going to send you the session 2 video and the 2 worksheets from that. Then you're going to get a list of questions that you can ask potential clients on new phone calls. And then I'm going to send you some links to some sample like contracts and like advice on reviewing contracts and advice on invoicing and all of that, because there are a lot of opinions and tips and different things out there. And I think it's a really personal decision about how much risk you're willing to take and, what contracts you use and that kind of thing. And so I want you guys to just review that and figure out kind of what works best for you. I will say, like, there have been many clients that I work with without ever having a contract, and it was fine. It was a great working relationship. So, but I'm not an artist also, so I don't have to worry about necessarily copyright. But I think it really depends on the type of person you are and what you want included and that kind of thing. So I'm going to send you some links where you can get some advice on that. And then if you guys have any other questions, you can type them in. We have about 10 minutes. And then as you get your pitches done, feel free to email them to me. I'll send you some edits. And if you ever have a client coming to you where you're just not sure, you feel stuck or you're not sure what they want, or you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I talk to artists all day long and answer questions about little things like that. So if you're pitching someone or talking to someone and you have a question, let me know. And if there's anything I can do to help, if there's any advice I have, I will definitely send it your way. Yes. One day you will, Denise. I think in the beginning, every artist, it's just like, it's hard to believe that you're ever going to be earning money, that you're ever going to be making it, that you're ever going to be in a comfortable place. But know that every artist feels that way. And I kind of come from the startup world. In the startup world, it's like everyone knows that they're going to eat ramen noodles for like 3 years while they build their startup, but they don't know if their startup's going to work. And for artists, I think it's very similar where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make any money for a few years, but I sure hope after those few years I'm making money. And that can be a really scary feeling because there is no guarantee. There's no guarantee that you're going to, be hugely successful or not. But what I've seen over and over again is that if people figure out what is really special or interesting about them and they hustle just bringing that to the table day after day and finding clients, that their business will grow and that it will work. And there are tons of artists out there who have built businesses similar to you, who didn't think that they were going to make any money from it as well. And so everyone kind of starts out that way, and that's fine, but you just have to keep moving forward. Oh, awesome, Denise. Thank you. How do you feel about belonging to professional organizations? It can be really helpful. Some are more useful than others. So I know all of the children's book illustrators are part of like the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. That one can be great. If you have a local association, they can be really fun. Like they'll have fun events and stuff, but typically like it's 10 artists and you all know each other by the end. So then it doesn't become as useful. But I say check them out and see, what they have to offer because everyone's different. But it can be a great way to connect with other artists and kind of share your work and start connecting together. What are your thoughts on pitching unpublished, even on your portfolio site, self-directed art to art directors? I just completed this piece. I think it makes sense. Um, so I think that it would be really hard for you to know. Okay, so m- magazines like they are planning their like issue months in advance from it coming out, and book publishers are the same way. And so it would be almost impossible for you to create a piece of artwork that would for sure fit the upcoming issue because you have no insight into what that is. But something that someone did once, and I'm going to find, I interviewed her on the Maker Mentors blog, and I was like, that's so smart, is she used to, hold on, see if I can find it. Oh yeah, Nava Cat. So she is an amazing illustrator, and she started doing. She would read a magazine. It's not letting me put the link in. I'm gonna send you the link if it won't let me do it. She was so she would read a magazine and then she would do an illustration that like fit with that was inspired by the article that she read. And then she would post it on Instagram and tag them in it. Like, I created this amazing illustration inspired by, include the magazine's Instagram handles article on X, Y, and Z. Or I created this illustration in inspiration of blah, 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 blah. So then she would put them on Instagram and then they would see it and love it so much that they would reshare it. And then she would grow her following that way. So if you were going to do that approach, what I would do is create one based on something like you've read of theirs recently and then put it on Instagram. It's still not letting me put the link in the chat room. I'm so frustrated. I've pasted it like 4 times. It's just not showing up. So I'm going to email it to you. But putting the image on Instagram, tag the brand on it, and then email the art director and say, hey, I created this and shared it on Instagram. I thought you might want to see it and let me know if you would like to work together for one of your upcoming issues. Because then what you're showing is, I read the magazine, I understand the magazine, my style aligns with the magazine. Here is an example of how great I would be at doing an illustration for your magazine. Will you please hire me to do an illustration for an upcoming issue? And then they're more likely to trust that you know what you're doing, and you're likely going to create an illustration they love. So I think that would be a great way for you guys to do it. Yeah. One of my best friends was a graphic designer, and in college she would get in trouble for editing other designers' work without them asking for her edits. So yeah, definitely maybe make sure it isn't illustrated by someone else, or just you can say, it was inspired by. That's totally fine. All right. Do you guys have any other questions? Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I think if any of you do that, let me know because I would love to see what you come up with. And I'm going to send you the link too because it's really great. It's a really great article. I interviewed her about how she markets her work, and she's actually a stay-at-home mom. She has really young kids, and so her goal is to basically keep her brand as an illustrator up to date, so that when her kids go off to school, she can easily get clients through the door and build her illustration business. So she's just really smart about how she approaches it and just staying. I did an interview with her on the Maker Mentors blog, where she shared some of her best like tips for marketing your illustrations. So I'm going to send you that. Nava Katz, Naavakatz. Yeah, if you Google Maker Mentors Nava Katz, I think it should come up right away. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to send session 2 and the worksheets shortly. Session 3 and the worksheets will be coming tonight. And then you can enjoy your weekend, get working on your pitches, survive the hurricanes, guys, stay safe out there. And then email me next week if you guys have any questions or if you want feedback or anything else. Oh, I'm glad you found it helpful. This has been, I really enjoy teaching. When I started this company, I didn't want to teach any of the workshops because I was like, I don't want to get on camera and I don't want to talk to, and as you can see, I don't enjoy doing my hair and putting makeup on and sitting in front of a camera, but I really it's really fulfilling just to teach people and to see that they're catching on and learn something they didn't learn before and feel like they can move forward. So the only reason that I keep teaching these classes is because it's so helpful to you guys. So thank you for saying that. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend and don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything at all. Oh, Linda, I got you up. That's so awesome. Yes, I'm very down to earth. I'm more laid back than people always want, but that's okay. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.